Chronicles, Cyber Fiction. We'll meet Gary Gach, author of a new book all about cyber writing called Writers.net. We'll show you an example of collaborative online fiction called The Company Therapist. We'll meet Jaimes Alsop, publisher of the Alsop Review, an internet publishing site. And we'll visit a website called Writers on the Net, where you can attend a virtual writer's workshop. Plus, we'll explore comic books on the net, another form of cyber fiction. And my pick of the week, a new color flatbed scanner for under $100. It's all coming up next on the Computer Chronicles.
Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro One software, educational software for young adults.
And by Z Auction, the live online shopping experience.
And by Audio Highway, makers of the Listen Up Player, which provides digital, portable, customized audio downloaded from the internet and played anytime, anywhere, on headphones or over a car radio. Additional funding from and by Windows Mag and by Learn2.com, the Ability Utility.
Hi, and welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart Cheifet. Well, the internet is changing everything, and one of the areas seriously affected by the sudden growth of the cyber world is writing. Now, everyone can not only write a book, but publish it as well. The net is full of writing, fiction, nonfiction, and sometimes fiction in the guise of fact. Will the net forever change the way we write and the way we read? We're going to start out looking at cyber writing by meeting the writer of this book, Writers.net, Gary Gach. Welcome, Gary.
Hi.
All right, we're going to talk, first of all, I want to talk about all the resources that are available on the net for writers, and you've got quite a few of them. One of them is, as a matter of fact, the website that goes with your book.
That's
so
right.
Why don't you show us what's on there?
Well, there's 750 resources in the book, and to get a sense of it, here, of course, you can order a copy, but the next thing we have on the website is a map. There's distance learning and meeting other writers and all the various different
kinds
genres.
of writing.
And how do you get paid? And
What was that, webisodic?
cyber soaps.
Cyber soaps on webisodic
Webisodic
new kind of
sites.
writing.
Net journalism, research, the difference between e-zines and magazines,
Online
books,
magazines.
self-publishing, self-promoting,
So
new writing.
This is a big topic,
Yeah.
cyber fiction, cyber
Huge,
writing.
yeah.
All right, now I saw one little button on the left there called Research Central. and
Well, what we've done is we've taken the chapter on research and we've put it online. You know, you give something away to get something. And this has 150 resources, like how to find experts and finding your...
So I'm a writer, I want to do some research. This tells me how I can figure out doing my research on the web.
Actually, it's for anybody,
Okay.
but for writers as well, yeah.
All right, now another thing I know you have on your website, which is obviously one of the points in cyber writing, is an update on the book. So you bought the book, things have
Absolutely,
changed,
right.
and where do I go for that?
So on the
Updates to the book.
updates to the book, we take the URLs that have changed, the new things that have happened. I take articles out of the paper sometimes and I post them up there. The minute you put out a book, it's 1.0, and you're waiting until
Right.
2.0, and you do all the different stages in between.
All right, well, it'll come eventually. It's the web. One other thing I want to ask you about, I see you have a mailing list. So there's sort of a, okay, there's your update.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go back. I saw you had a mailing list. There's sort of a forum for writers that you run on
All
your
the
website?
readers of the book can communicate with all the other writer-readers.
Right. Again, a new way of dealing with writers and readers, which you couldn't have done before.
Absolutely. You get close
Yeah.
to your audience, you become a part of the process. You no longer are the sage on the stage or the guide on the side.
All right, I want to ask you to show us two more sites which are of interest to writers. One is called Studio B, I believe.
Yeah, the Computer Book Cafe is the website for a mailing list for computer book writers. And the people in the industry, like the computer book buyer for Borders is there, and lawyers and agents.
So it's sort of an ongoing
acquisition
trade show for
editors
writers. And
are looking for the next book. Yeah, it's an ongoing schmooze fest,
Okay.
24 hours a day.
So I could find an agent, for example.
Yeah, you could find out how to write a proposal and how to do your taxes. And if you've just come into this list, or if you just wanted to use the resources of the list, you could search for...
So if I want to know about this dummies phenomenon and what that did to writing computer books.
That's the phenomenon for computer books. Yeah, you can find
That turned
out...
computer books into popular books, huh?
Yeah, like Grisham and Stephen King. You can find out from the guy who wrote it, his wife.
And
There's
a guy named Gary Gach there.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing I want you to show me is a site called CAR.
Oh, yeah.
CAR stands for Computer Assisted
reporting, research. Yeah, it used to be
this?
if you knew 2 fingers, that was fine. But now you have to know spreadsheets and relational databases.
So this is for journalist kind of writing, right?
Right, yeah. You get out of journalism school, you not only know the news and weather, like here's an example of all the writing about it, but you have internet resources, World Wide Web resources.
So again, these are specific resources on this site if I'm doing journalist type writing.
Right, how to make a map.
Right.
To show the crime in the neighborhoods, what neighborhoods are hotspots.
Writers.net
Yeah.
by Gary Gach. Thank you. All right, well, one way the net is changing the process of writing is by allowing writers to collaborate with colleagues all over the world. For example, we found one writer here in San Francisco who's working with illustrators and co-authors from New York to Australia.
This artist is producing illustrations for a book from his studio in San Jose, California. He sends the finished work to the writer, who works about 15 miles away, but the novel is published in cyberspace. While he starts to draw with ink and paper, he adapts the work for the electronic medium.
When you're working online, you've got a lot more constrained parameters of what you are really able to do, especially people browsing the web from home. You have to keep your file sizes really considerately small.
Brian is one of several people working for the Jitterbug Press, which recruits contributors from across the country and across the world. Jitterbug is the brainchild of Kristen Brennan, unassuming Silicon Valley web mistress by day, cyber publisher the rest of the time.
I publish on the web because between the time I write something and the time I can publish a hard copy is a minimum of 8 months, and often a year to 2. When I write something and publish it on the web, it's published the next day.
Kristen has several projects under the Jitterbug label, from comics to games to kids' books. But her most ambitious work so far is The Garden of Earthly Delights, a serialized cyber novel, soon to be in paper form. She compares her fragmented approach to that of Charles Dickens, who serialized his works for magazines. But she also recognizes the limitations of the web.
The things that play best are things where you can work in visual elements or interactive elements where you can catch people's attention very, very quickly, things that download quickly. Probably the thing that would play best would be a very short, very funny piece with some visual grab or interactive grab.
The comics are already in print, but one of Jitterbug's cyber stories enjoyed early success as a kind of electronic paperback when it was ported to the handheld pilot.
I made a version of Buffalo Girls for the pilot, and I get about 10 letters a week. About 2,000 copies have been read. Q is coming out with a CD-ROM soon that'll include it. And people write me all the time and go, oh, I read it on the plane, I read it wherever. This is much more convenient than even a paperback.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Sarah O'Brien.
If you're looking for good writing on the net, good luck. Like everything else on the internet, trying to find what you really want, trying to separate the good from the bad, can be quite difficult. In the realm of writing, that has led to organized writers' websites and news groups, and one good example is the online Alsop review, published by writer Jaimes Alsop. And I guess, is that the idea? You guys look all over the place for writing, figure out what you think are the best writers and the best writing, and put them up on your site?
That's correct. There are 11 of us, and we search all. There are many e-zines on the internet. We search all of them, and we look for the best writers, the best poets that we can find.
It's a great service as long as we agree.
Well, it doesn't matter if they've had it doesn't matter if they've had 11 books published or none. You know, it doesn't matter if they're famous academic figures, so long as their writing is good.
All right, let's take a look at the site. What are my choices when I log on to the Alsop review?
They're very simple. We have
poets and writers.
Poets and writers.
All right, so let's start with some poetry. And if I click on the poets, I then have a choice of the different poets you've selected to put on your review site.
It will bring up, right now, 27 poets that we have. We're not an e-zine, so we don't change monthly or quarterly. What we do is we will go to the writers and ask them to periodically update their pages.
And you're not just a link site either. You're not just linking to other places. This is all resident on your site right now.
This is all resident right here.
All right, so let's pick a poet and take a look at how I'd read a poem here. Say Andrew Hudgens.
Andrew Hudgens is a very well-known poet. He has 4 books of poetry out right now.
So they're the choices of poems by Hudgens that you have on your site, so we'll go take a look at that one.
Yeah, one of the advantages we can do here, this is a poem called Costello Annunciation, which is a poem about a painting by Botticelli. Now, you can read the poem.
So the cool thing is you can click and link to the actual painting
And we can
he's been writing about.
see the actual painting he's been writing about.
All right, so let's go back to poets and let's try another example. I recognized a name there, Linda Crespi.
Linda Crespi.
And so let's see if we can find her.
Linda's from England,
Yeah.
and she is a Shakespearean scholar, and a very good one. And she and a writer you may have heard of, William Shakespeare, got together and collaborated on some sonnets.
Now that's chutzpah, to go rewrite a Shakespeare sonnet, huh?
It also takes some...
That's what this is?
It's a collaborative
By
sonnet
Linda Crespi and William Shakespeare. Sort of like
Shakespeare.
Nat King Cole and Natalie, huh?
Yeah, and Linda's name first, of course.
Right.
And you click on another sonnet. What it's doing, it's taking one of Shakespeare's sonnets with a sonnet that Linda wrote and combining the two. So a random number of lines will come up each time. Sounds easy to do. The thing is, Linda is such a good poet that every one of them looks like it could have been written by William Shakespeare.
And I take it you like these. They're up here.
I love them.
All right, let's go back to, let's leave poetry for a minute and go back to the writers and look at fiction here, and let's just see what it would look like to pull up one of those guys. So let's click on writers.
Now again, with the writers, we have famous writers here. Eric Kraft is here. Paul Sampson. But we'll also bring up people that are unknown.
Okay.
And
so let's pick a writer. And these would be basically short stories,
short stories, nonfiction. The opening chapter is a book sometimes.
Okay, so who's Rosemary London?
Rosemary London is a young lady who lives in New York. She's the associate editor of the Queen's Historical Society newsletter.
Okay.
Who would have ever known of her?
Yeah.
But in fact, she's very, very good, and she sent us some work. We passed it among us, and here she is.
And we could read. Now, let me ask you just a couple of questions. Do most people read this online, or would they print it out, do you think?
I think both.
Okay.
Both. We get about 50,000 readers a year.
And do these people get paid? Do your writers get paid?
No, they don't. Not yet. We are supported. We are supported. There are a couple of publishers that support us, and private donations.
All right.
But we don't get
the
too
Alsop
involved.
review. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Well, another unique aspect of cyber writing is the totally new concept of the collaborative novel. A piece of fiction in which there really is no separation between the writers and the readers, in which the creative work itself is the product of the readers, who then may become the writers. It all sounds confusing. This is a very different form of writing for the cyber age. One good example is an online collaborative piece of hyperfiction called The Company Therapist. And Chris, that's your idea. Explain what the basic concept is behind The Company Therapist.
Well, the premise is that there's a psychiatrist who has taken on the job of being the psychiatrist for a large San Francisco computer company. The real premise is...
His patients are the employees of this company, supposedly?
Yeah, they're all employees, or mostly they're employees of this company, and they have a considerable number of problems.
And the beauty is that each patient is sort of a standalone story that a separate writer could be creating, huh?
That's right. What we try to do is figure out a way that collaborative writers can, collaborate and yet still own the piece of writing that's their own.
So it's a very clever idea, the therapist, which sort of bring together separate writing in one sort of thematic environment.
That's right. We're trying to create a sort of a literary environment where the reader can draw their own path through it using...
All right, so let's take a look at the site. So you have the Company Therapist up, and how do I go read, one of these patient profiles here?
Well, the easiest way is that at the beginning of the site is a little teaser for the latest piece for each one of the patients.
So these are all the patients that are in the therapist's office here?
Right. So.
All right, so who should we take a look at?
Oh, I don't know. How about we can look at the top one, Decker.
Okay, Decker.
And Decker is, he's a schizophrenic, actually. Okay. And
Decker's a character created by one of the many writers who are collaborating on the site, right?
That's right. Yeah, this is all fiction. And
got it.
I play a psychiatrist on the web, but I'm not an actual psychiatrist.
All right.
But the transcripts look like this, and it's written by the author who wrote Decker. He writes both the doctor's part and Decker's part.
Okay, now if you have all these different writers all writing the same doctor's part, how do you make sure that it all makes sort of sense and there's one character there?
Well, first of all, we edit things very carefully,
Okay.
and we're very concerned about keeping the doctor's voice consistent. And also, the doctor is, he's a therapist, so he's saying things like, and tell me more.
Very neutral. It's like the old Eliza, right?
Right, in the doctor's notes, which we write, he can have more of his own voice because
see.
it's written by me.
Now, do these different patients or characters ever interact and hit a common point within the story?
They do. The way that we try to do that is we ask that the authors communicate with each other via email, and they have to agree in advance before any action takes place that affects both of their characters.
All right, now I understand, for instance, there was one situation in which you had one character, one patient was a rape victim, and one patient was a rapist, and it turns out they were related in that event.
Yeah, one character raped another character, and it had to be very clear that the woman author whose character was being raped wanted to write about that, and she did, and so they collaborated together.
And your role as sort of editor, manager of the story of the site is to make sure all these different writers are sort of working together to some degree.
Oh, absolutely. It's very important.
Okay. Now you have graphic elements in here too, which makes it more interesting, right?
Yeah, we try to do a lot of graphic support for the site. For example, we have a character, Helen Gregory, and she wrote, her story involves a bridge collapse in 1929, which is relevant to her story.
Some pictures up there.
So we have a postcard, we have a newspaper article from that time. She writes, sent the doctor a fairly strange Christmas card one year. So all of those...
You might have patient doodles here to sort of analyze, or I know you had a case where you had what was it, ultrasound picture of some weird case?
Yeah, one of our patients has twins by separate fathers, and so there's ultrasounds of her, and there's also things like there's the records from the company, so there's all the personnel files.
Sounds like a lot of fun being on the site. Let me ask you one other question. Do you actually provide help for the writers? I mean, a lot of them are amateurs, I assume, are just playing around with this model.
Actually, we hope that the site is entertaining to the readers, but one of the real motivations is to try to improve the writing of each one of the writers who contribute. So we try to support them by editing and by making their task simpler. If you're writing a short story, you have to worry about the arc of the plot, and you have to worry about trying to come up with all the characters and settings.
So if we want to go see it, it's called The Company Therapist.
It's at thetherapist.com.
The Therapist, all right. Well, the business or the art of writing has been changed not only by the internet, but by PCs themselves. The desktop publishing revolution, even before the net, gave everyone the ability to not only write a book, but to research it, to print it, and to distribute it.
When San Francisco's new main library opened in 1996, some called it the Library of the Future. Along with an electronic catalog and computerized checkout, the imposing new building boasted internet terminals and a computer room for kids known as the Children's Electronic Discovery Center. While the library is still devoted to the printed word, librarians keep an open mind.
We're a place of learning, and I feel the library doesn't limit itself to learning through books. We are a place for people to do independent learning, to learn about a lot of things. And so computers are one method children can learn.
The Children's Center was an instant hit. On weekends, parents and kids sign up for half-hour slots on the computers where they read books and play learning games on CD-ROM.
Number one, the environment is different, and you focus on the screen, and as you read, and you may just can, pull down the page or go to page 1, page 2, or sometimes you can skip it, or do something that is more stimulating.
The cyberbooks keep preschoolers entranced while parents try to balance the computer sessions with their traditional bedtime duties.
We have to keep reading the books. It's like traditional way. Reading the books, it's like from parents to the child. It's very important because it makes a big difference in the relationship between the kid and the parents. If you use all the time the computer, it's not good. I don't think it's a good idea.
While the Children's Discovery Center relies currently on CD-ROM books, the librarians are keeping an eye on the internet as well.
I'm always looking for quality content that I can provide to children, that's written at a children's level. That's one of the trickier things, is a lot of the content on the internet that's good is written for adults. It's not written at a children's level. So that's more the challenge, is finding something that's really good, that's engaging, that's informative, that is rich, but is written for someone under 10.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Sarah O'Brien.
Well, let's say you are a writer, or you would like to be a writer. What can the internet do for you? Quite a lot. There are endless sources of help online for would-be writers. One of the best is a site called Writers on the Net. That's your baby, Mark. And this is basically a place where I can take a class or work with a tutor to improve my writing or to learn how to write.
That's right. The classes are offered on email lists, and the teachers are well published in their fields and have a lot of teaching experience.
All right, so let's take a look at the site. Here it is, Writers on the Net. And what are the different kinds of classes I would take here?
We have classes in pretty much every genre, from writing nonfiction to poetry to...
All right, so let's see what you're offering. Getting your book published, travel articles, nonfiction magazine, poetry, children's writing, script writing, fiction writing. So yeah, you've got a whole sort of college of writing going on here.
We do.
Now, who are the instructors? Where do they come from?
The instructors live all over, and they are widely published. They've published a lot in their field, and they have a lot of teaching experience.
All right, now suppose I wanted to sort of check out one of these classes and who's teaching it. What do I do? Just click on one of those sample classes?
Just click on one. If you wanted to take a class in the Introduction to Poetry, for instance, John High is a poet that's now living in New York. He's published a few books of his own poetry. He's taught at universities. So you read the blurb and read about
I see
John.
the blurb on who's teaching it, and I can decide whether, yeah, he's a good guy or not, and I might want to work with him.
And if you did, you'd write to us and either ask more questions or sign up.
All right, now I pay for these classes, I take it?
That's right. The classes are $190 for an 8-week class and $240 for a 10-week class.
And how many students would be in one of these virtual classes?
Minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10.
And how does it all work now? I mean, the class starts and what, I get an assignment from my instructor, write something?
You and the other students would be on an email list so that everything that's sent to the list is distributed to everyone else on the list. Once a week you'd get a lesson with an assignment, send your assignment in, all the students would read it and give feedback, and the teacher would give feedback on it.
And does this work as well, you think, as the old-fashioned way, just sitting in a room at night at some extension class?
It does. You lose the personal contact, but you actually gain a lot. There's interaction every day. The anonymity gives you a lot of freedom, and you get to interact with really good teachers, kind of. You can live anywhere. You can live in the bush.
Yeah, so you have students and teachers scattered all over the country or the world, for that matter, I would think.
The first class we offered had 7 students in 4 different countries. So.
Wow. All right, so that's the classes part. Let's go to the tutors part, because another thing you can do on your site, as I understand, is pick one expert, one real writer whom I could work with on my particular area. Say I'm a mystery writer, but I need some help because this is my first novel. How do I go find help?
So you come to our tutors list and go into mystery, and you
find
find
so you had the
Shelley
different genres there, and if I was a science fiction writer or whatever, so we're into mystery, thriller, and suspense. And Shelley is your mystery expert?
That's right.
Tutor?
She's published 9 books of her own and has taught a lot, and you could work with her either on a finished manuscript that you wanted to tune up, or you could be at the very beginning of a book and work with her chapter by chapter.
And again, this all takes place online. I would send her email of my writing, and she would then critique it, and we'd work it back that way. And how do I pay for that one?
We would bill the time that you would bill Shelley's
sort of
time
an
at the end
hourly
of the
kind
month.
of thing.
That's right. It's an hourly billing.
All right. And suppose actually, let's go back to classes for a second, and I wanted to register for one of those classes. What do? I'm on your site, and I've looked at this class and say I wanted to take, I don't know, the script writing class or something like that. What do I do?
Decided to take a class, and you'd come down to the end of our list and you'd find the link.
All right, so somewhere down here it says, there you go, register.
There's the link to our email form, and you'd send the form in with questions or your desire to enroll.
How long have you been doing this?
For about 2 years.
What kind of feedback you get from your students?
It's great. Oh, it's really positive. A lot of people get actually take repeat classes or take more classes.
And hopefully a student then gets published, becomes one of your teachers.
That's right.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, that's our look at cyber fiction. I'll be back in just a moment with my pick of the week. Now for my pick of the week. Computers are obviously no longer just about text. We're all using pictures to communicate and tell stories. And the net is no longer about text. Web pages, even emails and chat rooms are now full of graphics and photos. So you need a way to scan images into your PC. Indeed, scanners are one of the fastest growing categories of computer peripherals. If you needed a scanner up until now, you had a few choices. A low-cost handheld scanner, usually an awkward solution, a flatbed scanner, usually an expensive solution, or a specialized photo scanner, a limited solution. But now the people at PlusTech have come up with a major technology and price breakthrough with their 600p color flatbed scanner. What is incredible about this new scanner is that it works well. It offers 30-bit color, which means up to 1 billion colors. It doesn't require an adapter card, so it doesn't tie up a slot, and it's easy to install. It plugs right into the parallel port, so it works just as well with a laptop as with a desktop. And get this, the price is $99. The 600p scanner offers up to 4800 dpi resolution. It uses 10-bit A to D conversion, which means better quality of the scanned image. The 600p also comes with bundled software for optical character recognition and image editing, so you can clean up those photos. This is a great example of innovative design and manufacturing, a 30-bit single-pass flatbed scanner with software for $99. It's the 600p from PlusTech. That's it for this edition of the Computer Chronicles. We'll be back here again next week with more of the latest in computer and internet technology. I hope we'll see you then.
Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro One software, educational software for young adults.
And by Z Auction, the live online shopping experience.
And by Audio Highway, makers of the Listen Up player, which provides digital, portable, customized audio downloaded from the internet and played anytime, anywhere, on headphones or over a car radio. Additional funding from PC Connection and Mac Connection, the catalog and online superstore with PC and Mac products, toll-free technical support and overnight delivery. And by Windows Magazine, delivering desktop, enterprise, and internet computing news, reviews, features, and how-tos for a Windows world, because the world runs on Windows. And by Learn2.com, the ability utility.
To purchase a videotape copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-310-7850. Please specify show number and topic.
Next week on the Computer Chronicles, a look at the global computer industry from the ETRA conference in Hungary. We'll take a peek into the future of the internet and personal computing as we hear the predictions of top industry leaders like Netscape's Jim Barksdale, Compact's Eckhard Pfeiffer, and 3Com's Eric Benamou. Plus a look at some new computer and internet technologies coming from countries across the Atlantic. Coverage of the European Technology Roundtable Exhibition from Budapest, next week on the Computer Chronicles.